Hello everybody and welcome to the CEM homework review video. This is the first video of block 4, so block 4 week number 1, and obviously this is the maths homework review video where we'll be going over ratio and proportion questions primarily today. So taking a look at the homework sheet, this is the one we've been going off here. It's the CEM one and of course it's the week 1 homework, and we'll be looking at 2 pages from the Wild About Math book and then 1 page from the CGP 11 Plus practice book. Now, I'm probably going to do these in the order where I'll go through first off the ratio and proportion questions on 16 and 17, then, because it's in the same booklet, the What About Maths questions on pages 30 and 31, and then I'll go through this middle section here, which is the CGP book, again with more practice questions on ratio and proportion. So I'll do it in a slightly different order just so we're not changing between the two books. As always, we'll show you a very quick answer section if you just want to see the answer. So by all means, just skip through the video until you can see that. You're looking for the pages that have the large photo of the book on the front cover there, the quick answer pages. But then obviously, if you would like a bit more of an in-depth run through of how to do the questions, obviously stick around and we'll go through the questions in turn. So here are the quick answer section for the Wild About Maths book. So if you want to just briefly pause the video here, take a look at the answers, and you can just mark pages 16 and 17. If you want to do a more in-depth run through, obviously carry on watching. Here we go. So this is ratio and proportion. These are on page 16 and 17. And let's just run through and talk through the questions. So task 1, some male and female lions live together within a pride. The ratio of males to females is 3 to 5. So remember, really important that males have to come first, females have to come second because of the order of the question. So I always label it M to F, 3 to 5. And now I've got this, I can carry on reading. This means for every 3 male lions, there are 5 lionesses. Work out the following ratios. So if there were 12 males, how many females would there be? And just to show you that the setup for each of these, you're saying, okay, well, 3 has now become 12. How much larger is that? That is 4 times larger. Therefore, this 5 must also become 4 times larger. And so my answer is going to be 5 times 4, which in this case is 20. Now, just to be clear, how can you work out this times 4? Now, maybe 3 times 4 is 12 is a bit easier, but just remember if it's something you struggle to spot, if you, from the numbers 3 and 12, wanted to end up with an answer of 4, remember the secret is to do 3 and 12, 12 divided by 3 will give you the 4. So if you ever want to know, what's required, for example, let's look at this one for example, so 5 times what equals 20, I would do 20 divided by 5, and 20 divided by 5 gives you the 4. So if you go in reverse, you'll work out what you need to multiply a number by to get that number. That's a good little trick. So that one there, remembering to set it out like that is how you can always work out what you need to multiply by. Good little tip. So if we now go through, again, same trick, I'm going to just carry on writing it underneath. So now we've got 50. So going from here to here, going from 5 to 50 is timesing by 10. So I'm going to have to do 30 here. So if I fill these in, we've got 20 here, 30 here. Again, 3 to 33. What do I have to times 3 by to get 33? Timesing by 11. So I have to times this by 11, so 55. Got 24 here. 3 times what gets you to 24? If I couldn't spot it, I would do 24 divided by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so I know it needs to be 8 times bigger. And of course, 5 times 8 is 40. Again, here, I've now got 30. So starting from 5 always, so 5 times what gets you to 30? It's 5 times 6. So I do the same to the other side. 3 times 6 is 18. And finally, 36. 3 times what gets you to 36? Well, in this case, it's 3 times 12 gets you to 36. So then 5 times 12 is 60. And you can see how I've been really efficient in terms of setting this out and constantly sort of working out what I needed to do. Times 12. And that's how I do task 1. And again, there are the answers. Task 2, I'm just going to minimize this so I've got some space to work it out. Write down the ratio of males to females. So again, they've got males then females, so it needs to be M then F. And then write them in the simplest form. So here, there's a pattern. So we're going to have to go, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 males to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 8 to 16 is a ratio, but to simplify a ratio, I would simplify it the exact same way I'd simplify a fraction. If I had, for example, 8 over 16, I'd be dividing both sides by the highest common factor. In this case, this is 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So that's the same way I do this. I do the exact same thing, but with a ratio. So I'm going to divide them by the highest factor, so I'm dividing them both by 8. And 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So this is in the ratio of 1 to 2. So the ratio here is 8 to 16, in the simplest form it's 1 to 2. Let's do it for this next one. So again, just color code it. The dotting technique for counting is really quite a good one. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's 16 to something. And if you can't, I can do different colors. If you can't, you can always then dot on the underneath. So for females, I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's the ratio of 16 to 14. I can divide both of these by 2 and end up with having the ratio of 8 to 7. Because of course, both those numbers can be halved. The factor there is 2. Last one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. To 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So interesting example, we've got the ratio of 12 to 12. And I can divide 12 and 12 by the same number, which is 12. In this case, the ratio then simplifies down to 1 to 1. Which means for every one male, there's one female. So there will be the final answers. Again, check them against there. Okay, so task 3 coming up now. 6 lionesses go hunting. For every lioness that goes, 6 antelopes are killed. So that is a ratio of 6 lionesses to 6 antelopes. So lionesses to antelopes, 6 to 6. Oh no, sorry, excuse me. For every lioness, so for every one lioness that goes, 6 are killed. So it's this ratio. It's always worth checking. So for every one lioness, 6 antelopes are killed. So but now how many were killed altogether? Well, in this case, if 6 lionesses have gone hunting, I've now set up my equation. I'm now trying to work out what's the number of antelopes. In this case, it's 6 more, or 6 times as many. So here I have to do 6 times as many as well, which means there'll be 36 antelopes killed. Poor antelopes. Final answer, 36. And then during a hunt, for every 3 zebras that are killed, 8 buffaloes were killed. So here we've got the ratio of 3 zebras to 8 buffaloes. If 32 buffaloes are killed, how many zebras were killed in total? Well, same question. Again, I want to work out how many times larger this is. If I can't work it out, I'll do 32 divided by 8, and that actually gives me 4, which means I now know that 8 times 4 is 32. I can do the same thing here, and that then gives me 12. And so I can fill in 12 zebras were killed in total. And that's that one. So now, exploring further, draw the correct number of lions below if the ratio of zebras to lions is 3 to 1. So zebras first. lion second, so that's going to be 3 to 1. If I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, to go from 3 to 9 is times by 3, so I have to do 1 times 3. So that means there are 3 lions. That's what it's telling me. So I would need to draw 3 lions now. I'm only going to do this because it'll make you laugh. Here's my attempt at a lion. So there's a little kitty cat. And then assumes lions still have whiskers. And it needs big old mane. And there you go. There's my lion. But I need to have 3 of them. I'm going to cheat slightly. 1, 2, and 3. There you go. You'd have something probably a touch more artistic than this. But I never said I was an art teacher. Luckily, I'm a math teacher. And thank goodness for it. So that's what you'd want to see, guys, for the exploring further. 3 lions. We can press on now. Have a quick look at the quick answers for the addition and subtraction. It's worth doing that, I thought, just because it's in the same booklet. So this is the addition and subtraction, which is found on page 30 and 31. And if this is a quick answer, so pause here if you want to, but if you want to just quickly run through the answers, these are the questions that we're going through for the homework. And they are, I should say, but essentially just worded questions. So it's just worth making sure you're happy with translating these into the simple text. And what I mean by translating, let me just show you. So looking at number 1, there are 25 fire ants on a hill. If 6 of them are sleeping, how many are awake? To translate that, I just have to realise they want the difference between the two. That's 25 minus 6. 25 minus 6 leaves you with 19, because of course you can take away 6 from the 5, but that leaves 1 more. You just take away 1 more from the 20 to get you down to 19. But that is the translation part, where you're just turning it from all these words into simple numbers. So for B, there are 37 ants marching together, but 16 are going the wrong way. So that's going to be 37 subtract the 16 who are going in the wrong direction. Again, from here, 6 take 7 gives you 1, 3 take 1 gives you 2, so 21 left over. And for C, there are 46 fire ants above ground, 7 of them are female, how many are male? So again, translating that, it just simply wants to know 46 subtract 7. I think it's almost always, especially this short question like this, just worth writing out so you're very clear on what you're doing. And of course, with this one, 6 takes 7, you need to carry 1 more into it or 1 more over, so it's going to take you down to 39. And whether you set it like this or if you want to even set it out as a column, that's absolutely fine. Either way. Task 2, use column addition and subtraction to work out the following problems. So it's told me how to do it, so I'm going to listen. So here, in a colony, there are 524 male and 348 female. How many are there altogether? So altogether to me is an addition word. So I'm translating it. 524 add 348. Using column addition, like it said, off we go. So 4 plus 8 is 12, so 1 or 2 and carry the 1. So we've got 2 plus 4 is 6, plus the one we carried takes you to 7. And then 5 plus 3 is 8. So final answer for the first one, 872. I always like to, if I'm being particularly precise, technically that's your working out and you should write your answer out again. That's just a mathematical habit. And this one here, B, in a day, one fire ant lays, oh my goodness, 2,050 larvae or eggs. And of those, 1,230 of these are male. So how many are female? This is a what's the difference question. So I need to take 1,230 from 2,050. And again, as soon as I've set the question up, it becomes really easy. So 0 take 0 is nothing. 5 take 3, 50 take 30 leaves you with 20. I want to do something take away 200, but there's nothing here, so I have to borrow from the thousands column. So that becomes 1,000, which frees up another 1,000 here. So now I can do 1,000 take away 200, that leaves me with 800. And then 1,000 take away 1,000 leaves me with nothing. Final answer, 820. So 872 and 820. 872 and 820, jolly good. And the last one, just make sure I've got enough room. So for the old exploring further, use what you've learned to answer these two questions. There are 234 fire ants in one area and double that amount in the second area. How many are there in the second area? So for this one, we need to double it. Remember, doubling is the same as adding twice. So actually, this is an addition section. I'm going to do, let me do it down here, 234 plus 234, just to really practice my skills. And that gives me 8, 6, 4. So 468 ants will be in the second area because that's twice as many, doubled. If there were 256 ants marching towards their colony and 37 turn around to go back for food, how many enter the colony? That's going to be 256 subtract 37. I want to do 6 take 7, I can't, so I borrow from the 10s, making that a 40, which now frees up with 16. 16 take 7 I can do, that leaves me with 9. 40 take 30 leaves me with 10, and 200 take nothing, leaves me with 200. So final answer, 219. So 468 and 219, 468 and 219. We've done it. Right, guys, so that is the Wild Amount Maths homework. So nice, not too bad, I thought, quite nice. We're now going to move on and look at the CGP book. And here it is. This is the quick answer section. So by all means, pause it here if you want to just run through and do a quick answer. And you can actually read underneath. There's some quite nice explanations here. But obviously, I'll go through in more detail and run through the questions now. Page 15 and 16 coming up straight away. So on to the first page, number 1. Jimmy has a bag of apples. For every 3 red apples, there are 9 green apples. So we have red to green. And if we've got the ratio in its simplest form, where we're starting with 3 to 9, what can we divide 3 and 9 by? Well, 3 goes into both of them, so 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And again, if I'd asked you to simplify 3 over 9, I'm sure all of you would be able to tell me that it was 1/3. So just take a moment just to look at those numbers and see what the process is, and you'll realize it's the same thing, just written in a slightly different direction. Very, very similar. Next one, Gabriel is making a spiced fruitcake. The recipe says to use 1 part ginger to 3 parts cinnamon. Gabriel adds 5 grams of ginger. How much cinnamon should he add? So 1 part ginger, so that's 1 ginger to 3 cinnamon. So put that here. So if we now have 5 ginger, that's an increase of 5 times. So we're going to need to increase this by 5 times. So it's going to be 3 times 5 is 15 grams. So 15.00 grams. If they give me the spaces, I'll always fill them, even if it's with zeros. Lara makes another cake using the same recipe and adds 22.5 grams of cinnamon. Can I make that a little bit more working out room? Yes, I can. I think it's worth just doing that. So with this one, this is where we're going to use the skill I mentioned in the explanation part. In fact, let me make it extra clear because this one's, wow, a little bit more challenging. So it's still the same ratio of 1 to 3, but we now have to ask ourselves, how many times bigger is 22.5 than 3? Now, you might be able to spot this one. You might not. If you can't, this is where I'd use the trick of dividing the large number by the smaller. So if I divide 22.5 by 3, I'm going to use a bus stop. That's how I do all my divisions. I'll then know, whatever this answer is from a bus stop will be, how many times larger 22.5 is than 3. So 3 goes into 20 no times. Goes in no times. 3 goes into 22 7 times, remainder 1. So carry the 1 over, put the decimal there, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. So can you see how that very easily has given me 7.5, and that means I now know in order to go from 3 to 22.5, I times by 7.5. And that, I think, is the challenging step. Because here, now I apply the same thing, so I times 1 times 7.5, and of course, timesing anything by 7.5, timesing anything by 1, I end up with the same answer, so it is 7.5. So here I'd have 0, 7, 5, 0, not forgetting that there's 2 points down there. So that's my answer. So again, I used that relationship. I divided the 22.5 by 3 to work out how many times larger it was, and then I just did the same increase, and that way got my answer. And again, just a bus stop, such a useful skill. Being able to manipulate your operations, really, really useful. I think the bus stop, certainly decimal bus stop, incredibly useful, comes up an awful lot, and it's well worth practicing. Right, let's do number 4. Salim went pond dipping with his class. He drew a pie chart to show how many frogs and newts he found. What ratio of frogs to newts did he find in the pond? So we can see here, if this was a fraction, it would be sort of 3 out of 4. But if we just really simple label the sections equally and count them, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3 frogs. And since we wanted it in frogs and newts, you have 3 frogs to 1 section of newts. So it would be the ratio of 3 to 1. Final answer, 3 to 1. I think that's quite a good visual diagram to think about. Nick is counting birds in wood. This is number 5 now. Nick is counting birds in a wood. His guidebook says that out of every 4 birds he sees, he expects one of them to be a robin. Okay, so this is important. So out of every 4, so he has robin, then other bird, other bird, other bird. So the ratio of robins to birds is 1 robin for every 3 not robins or other birds. And that's important because it's not 1 to 4. And that's the same thing because it's out of 4. So hopefully you can see here, look, I've got 4 birds, one of which is a robin, and that produces the ratio of 1 to 3. I think the mistake that people have made here is they'll have said 1 to 4, but that's not the case. It's not 1 out of 4. It's 1 to 3 because it's out of 4. So now I've got the ratio. If he sees a total of 32 birds, how many can we expect to be robins? Well, the way I would do this is, again, it's using that out of 4. So 1 out of 4 could actually be written as a fraction. So there's a few ways of doing this. I actually think the easiest way, his guidebook says 1 out of every 4 birds is a robin. So I would say that means 1 out of 4 birds are robins. So if a quarter of the birds are robins, we just want to do a quarter of 32. And for this, I think timesing by 1 dividing by 4 gets you to 8 robins, the fastest. That's actually the answer. Just to show you how that links in to ratio, you'll remember this from the lesson if we covered off anything to do with proportion. Proportion is the skill of turning a ratio into a fraction. And just as a reminder, for proportion, you take the amount you want, so in this case the robins, so we take the number we want, the number of robins, and then we put it out of the total. And 1 plus 3, if you look, gets us to 4. So 1 out of 1 plus 3 is the same as 1 out of 4. So that's where that 1 out of 4 comes from, and that's how it relates to ratio. So number 5, interesting question, more proportion than anything else, but well worth understanding. If you look there, number 5, 8 robins. Number 6, Melissa keeps rabbits. 2 out of every 3 rabbits are ginger. The rest are black. Melissa has 6 ginger rabbits. How many black rabbits does she have? So again, this is more proportion than anything else. We should miss the proportion part of the question. So if 2 out of 3 are ginger, 1 out of 3 are black. And hopefully you can see, just using our fraction rules, that 2 out of 3 plus 1 out of 3 have to total to 3 out of 3. That's how I was able to work out the 1 out of 3. There's a couple of ways of doing this. I think this is probably the easiest, and that's what we always like to teach. So if 2 out of 3 of them are ginger, that means 2/3 equals 6 rabbits. Well, if 2/3 equals 6, 1/3 is going to be half as many. So hopefully you can see that 1/3 is going to equal 3. So I think that's the most simple way. So she should have 3 black rabbits. Again, if you wanted to work it out, you could say, well, if the 2/3 are 6, you could think to yourself that 1/3 is 3, although that gives you the answer. You could then say, just check in your head to make sure that makes sense. So she's got 9 rabbits in total. And then if 2 out of every 3, you could do it as a ratio. But this is by far the fastest way. So I would definitely recommend getting comfortable with this idea that if 2 out of every 3, that means that 2/3 of the rabbits are ginger. And that's your answer. Yeah, I wouldn't do it any other way, actually. I think this is by far the best. Number 7. For every 3 racing games that Joey owns, he has 5 football games. So he has 3 racing games to 5 football games. So that's now your ratio. If he has 6 racing games in total, how many football games? So again, I think the hard part is just setting out this ratio, but once it's set out, racing games to racing games, we can see that going from here to here is twice as many. So I have to do the same thing here, twice as many. So he's going to own 10 football games. Oh, sorry, no, excuse me. 10 football games, but that's not what the question is. And it's always worth, if I did that just by habit, it's always worth just reading the last line again. How many games does he have in total? Well, he has 10 football games, 6 racing games. So in total, he has the 10 plus the 6. So final step is to say he has 16 games in total. And how funny, isn't it, that you just catch yourself? And that's a great habit. Always just reread the last line of the question, because there's often some very useful information there. So, divide the following number in the given ratios. These are a really common style of question, but different, so this is worth having perhaps a little bit of explanation. So let's just clear some space. I'll show you certainly my preferred method for doing this, dividing the ratios. So, first things first, the amount that we're dealing with is 500. And we want to split that up. So for example, one person might be getting 3 shares and one person might be getting 2 shares. I often think about it in terms of money. So it was £500 and someone was getting 3 out of 3 and someone else was getting 2, or it was being split in the ratio 3 to 2. This is how we would do that. So to start with, if it's 3 shares and 2 shares, that makes a total of 5 shares. So step 1 is to add the ratios together to work out how many things, how many parts, how many shares you're splitting it into. So we're going to divide the 500 into 5 parts. And that means that each share, each one share is now worth 100. And I actually tend to like to write that 1 share, I've seen people call it shares, I've also seen people call it parts, you're dividing it into parts, sections, again, whatever you prefer. So that means that 1 share is worth 100. What we can now do is say, okay, well, this person on the left, this thing on the left, this 3 is going to get 3 shares. So they're going to get 3 lots of 100, which is 300. So this person here is getting 300. And this person here, this 2, is getting 2 shares. So they're getting 2 lots of 100, which is 200. And with these questions, the final check I always like to do, and you can do this mentally, is that if you've correctly split the 500 into 2 different piles, when you add them back together, you should get to 500. And luckily, 300 plus 200 does get me back to 500. So I'm pretty confident, actually, that this is correct. And that's a lovely thing. And it's always nice in maths when you can come across questions that you can actually check yourself. And this is one of those. So that is your method. So you add the ratios, divide the total by the ratios that you've added together. That gives you the value of 1 share, and then multiply that 1 share by the number. So I recommend, personally, I have to tell you, I think that's probably even worth copying out or copying down. Let's see if I can now replicate it for number 9. If you didn't manage to get 8 and 9, maybe have a go now at 9 using that method and see how far you get. How can I So if I do this, I can just make myself some more room. Hopefully you can still read that nice and clearly. So let's do this one. So again, let's follow my own advice. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So I'm going to be dividing this 420 into 7 shares. So let's do that. If you can't do it mentally, use a bus stop, but luckily I can do 42 divided by 7, which is 6, add the 0, gets you to 60. And now I know that 1 share is 60, or you can call it 1 part, depending on how you like to call it. 1 part, 1 share, one of them is 60. So now I want to have 4 lots of 60. And on the right, I want to have 3 lots of 60. So that's actually how your ratio is going to be, whatever that number is. Whatever that number is, 4 times 6 is 240. 3 times 60 is 180. And there are your ratios. And again, if you add them back together, you should get to 420, which you do, which means I'm pretty confident this is correct. So I'll write the answers in. And that's how I'd approach that question. Number 10. Let's do that in red again. Elise raised £240 from her sponsored swim. She divided it in the ratio 5 to 4 to 3 between 3 charities. How much more money will the charity that receives the most get than the charity that receives the least? So there's a couple of ways of doing this, but the start is actually going to be the same kind of method as this. We need to work out the value of the 4, the 5, and the 3. And then I'll show you a little shortcut at the end. But to start with, 5 plus 4 plus 3 will give us the number of shares we're dividing it into, and that adds to a total of 12. So we're dividing it into 12 shares. So 240 divided by 12 is going to equal 20. So 1 share is 20. And so now if we want to know what 5 shares are, 4 shares are, and 3 shares are, we can do 5 times 20, 4 times 20, and 3 times 20. Now you might ask, since we only need the largest and the smallest, why am I working out the middle one? Well, it's like I said earlier, it's so that I can check. Because if I can then add the totals back up and get to 240, I know I've done it properly. So that should be 100, 80, and 60. And just quick mental check, 100 plus 80 plus 60 does get me back to 240. So I know I've split it. And now you want to know the difference between the largest and the smallest. So that's the difference between 100 and 60. Sorry, 100 and 60. So that's a difference of 40. So I think the answer is £40. But let me just show you the shortcut. So that's sort of one way of doing it, and that's the most complete way. But the speediest way is to think, okay, well, how much more money will the charity the most versus the least? Well, what's the difference in shares? Well, the difference between having 5 shares and 3 shares is 2 shares. And the value of 2 shares is going to be 2 times 40. Sorry, 2 times, give it away. It's going to be 2 times 20, because 1 share is 20. And 2 times 20 also gets you to 40. So actually both ways here, you can get to 40 like this, or from the first one, the sum would have been the difference between the two. So it would be £100, take away £60, which gets you to the £40. So I'll color code it. So you can do, so the start is the same for both of these methods. You start with red, but whether you end doing it this purple way, which is probably the more complete way and the way I'd recommend to start with, or whether you can spot this slight shortcut by working out just the number of shares you actually need, which is the difference of 40. I say both work, they're both completely accurate and correct, and they both have the same answer, which is very important. Okay, let's just make myself some space. I think that's a really good question, actually. I like that one a lot. And it's maybe the first time you've seen the triple ratios, and again, you just treat them the exact same way as any other. So don't please be fazed by that at all. Number 10, it works the same way. Last one, these two rectangles are similar. What's the value of k? So you need to know just a mathematical fact here, and that's similar shapes increase by the same amount. So the increase from 3 to 9 will be the same increase that the 7 experiences. So all you need to do is work out going from 3 to 9 is how many times bigger? Well, in that case, it's 3 times bigger. And then for this question here, the 7 is going to undergo the same increase. So the 7 to what? Well, it's going to be 3 times bigger. And so the answer is going to be 21 because 7 times 3 equals, question mark, equals 21. And that's actually the method. Right, that's it, guys. Very well done. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, I'll see you all next week for some more. Brilliant, guys. Have a good one.